Hello, this is Jackie. In this video, let's watch an American criminal action film. Thief. Frank was a jewel thief in California. He and his friends were really successful thieves. He often stole at least 2 or 3 times a month and had a sales channel. The black boss admired Frank's skill and mind very much. He many times recommended him to be in charge of the black market. But Frank didn't like to be sent under the fence, and he had already planned a good life after retirement. Therefore, Frank took the follow-up transaction, pushed his companion Barry to do it. Unexpectedly, the mafia took the goods but did not pay the money. Barry found out that the mafia was helping a company involved in the crime to lend usury. Recently, the company had found that the mafia was full of corruption. After the mafia ran away, the goods would fall into the hands of the company. Frank was a master who didn't suffer much. He broke into the black business office single-handedly. Then he threatened them to pay for jewels that night. That night, the black merchant called on the boss to prepare to kill Frank. But the boss learned from the mafia that Frank was a rare talent. The boss, who cherished talent, offered an invitation to get Frank to work for him. The boss knew Frank's resume very well. In his opinion, Frank was just a little trouble. "We point you to a score. When we say it's there, it's there." The boss can provide more stealing channels across the country. And there were alarm system diagrams, all kinds of tools that were needed. Sometimes there was also a backdoor key. Anyway, what Frank needed, the boss can provide. And everything would be no less than 6 digits. The boss even promised that Frank would not go to jail. But Frank was a principled thief. He declared that he only stole jewels and cash, not the other kinds. But they didn't know that the police had monitored their negotiations. This evening, Frank showed himself to the long-loved Jessie. Once Jessie wandered around, she had no money, but she had a good time. Later, her passion disappeared and she returned here to live a normal life. Frank was a thief when he was young. He went to jail at the age of 20 and was released 11 years later. In the 4 years since he came out, with the skills he trained in prison, he became a famous jewels thief in the industry. Now Frank had an economic foundation. He could live a simple and happy life with Jessie. Jessie actually liked Frank too. She didn't dislike Frank's dishonorable life. It was just that she had no fertility, which made her undecided. Frank didn't care about these. It was a big deal to accept this. Frank's sincere love touched Jessie, and the two finally married. Soon, the boss found a big target worth millions of dollars for Frank. With his intelligence, Frank had mastered the detailed deployment of the building vault. But conquering the safe was a big problem. The special customized safe materials were indestructible. Frank thought that the risk was big, and he did not want to take the case. The boss was bound to win and promised Frank an additional $830,000. The high price made Frank moved and decided to take a risk. Now, his first task was to find a way to cut the safe and figure out the alarm system on the vault floor. This required at least 4 to 8 weeks of preparation time. Later, Frank came to a steel mill for help. The boss here was his boss's friend. He was also the teacher who taught Frank to break the safe before he became a thief. Because the design of the safe this time was too sophisticated, Frank was going to cut a hole directly in the door to get the diamond. He needed a portable device. The old man was sure to get it done in a week. Later, Frank hired lawyers and judges. The teacher, whom Frank regarded as a father, was released from prison. And the boss gave him a big mansion. At the same time, Barry also found out the operation of the alarm system. The sound detectors were installed on the ceiling of the vault floor. An alarm was triggered whenever someone walked by. There would be 10 seconds. He needed to send a password to cancel the alarm to the security company, and the code was transmitted by radio. They could only manage to monitor the password to cancel the alarm when the company moved. At present, only the boss could install the bug through the internal line. After everything was deployed, Frank used his free time to prepare to adopt a child with Jessie, but the orphanage rejected Frank because of his experience in jail. Frank was very angry, but he couldn't help it. It was worse when the police got him. The pager and the home phone were all bugged. Frank thought this matter was inseparable from the boss. The boss did not expect that they were monitored by the police that night. But the boss can still relax without being caught. Of course, he had the means to protect himself. He advised Frank not to worry about these little things. As long as he had money, nothing was a problem. And the boss also learned that Frank wanted to adopt a child. This was a piece of cake for him. In the black market, there were always parents who cannot afford to raise their children. Frank got excited immediately, and his troubles disappeared. But what he didn't expect was the teacher who just got out of the prison died on the hospital bed. Frank lost his teacher but got his son. One sorrow and one joy made his mood extremely complicated. Frank named his son David, the teacher's name, to commemorate the love that was too late to return. Time flew by. The old man kept his promise. He successfully created a portable device to cut the safe. At the same time, Barry also monitored the password to cancel the vault alarm. After drawing up the theft plan, Frank and others launched an operation that night. They used tools to cut a square opening at the top of the elevator. Then they tore the steel pipe to find the line that controlled the building. Subsequently, Frank successfully entered the vault and safely lifted the alarm. The three had a clear division and each one had its role. Frank and Barry operated the equipment to cut the safe. Another associate used a fire extinguisher to suppress the flame. In an inch, there were 4 sparks in front of the safe door. The special steel was melted the moment it was exposed to high temperature. Soon they cut open half of the safe door. Barry got in quickly and poured piles of shiny diamonds into the bag unscrupulously. Frank sat outside and looked at the masterpiece. Unexpectedly, after the incident was completed, the boss betrayed and only gave a small portion. He said that the remaining money was when Frank became a shareholder in the business. Of course, Frank didn't want to be trapped to death by the gang. He was still waiting to make enough money to live a good life with his wife and child. But the boss didn't care, and he found the next target for Frank. Frank refused directly, threatening not to work for the boss. The boss couldn't figure it out. He provided Frank with a car, a house, and even his son. And he wanted to get some returns. But in Frank's opinion, the boss was deducting his hard-earned money. If he didn't get the money he deserved within a day, the boss had to pay the price. Frank's hardline attitude brought him annihilation. The heart-wrenching boss immediately wanted to kill Frank. He immediately sent his subordinate Barry to capture Frank. The boss threatened Frank because he was not obedient anymore. He sold his wife and children, leaving his family ruined. Frank did not give in. He resisted his anger and went home. He entrusted his wife and children to another friend. Before leaving, Frank gave all his savings to Jessie, asking her to add $10,000 to that friend every month. After sending away his family, Frank blew up the house. He destroyed all of the boss's property overnight. From the moment his friend died in front of his eyes, Frank made up his mind to take revenge. All the beautiful longings were gone. Frank sneaked into the boss's house and attacked the bodyguard. 2 shots hit the boss's heart. When the other men heard the noise, they came to the rescue. Frank had more than one enemy, and he had no shots. But he knocked all the men to the ground. Frank killed the opponents on the spot. He got up and checked the bulletproof vest. They were all dead. Thief is Michael Mann's second film. The story is simple, but the processing is slow. And it spends a lot of space in the daily life of the protagonist. It makes people feel that the rhythm is a bit slow. The final shootout is also extremely simple and neat. Compared with the future masterpiece, Heat, it is indeed a bit not as good. Well, this video ends here. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, see you next time.